Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Maz and today I'm in Gloucester. And in today's video I'll be trying out this Jaguar F-Type with a V6. A huge thank you to Paul for lending me his car, and if you are a Jaguar owner and you would like a car featured on the channel, feel free to reach out. Now if you want the full overview for the Jaguar F-Type, click on the top right hand corner of the screen or in the link in the description down below. In this video we're just going to focus on the V6, which is often regarded as the sweet spot in the Jaguar range. Originally this car had 340 PS, but has now been uprated to the higher factory specification 380. And here are the specs for this particular car. So the engine in this particular car is the AJ126, which is actually a V8 with 2 cylinders removed. So in other words, this car has the same crankshaft and the same cylinder block, just with a different cylinder head. So just to clarify, they blanked out the 2 cylinders at the back, not the front of the engine block. And all V6s are supercharged. Normally with other Jaguars you have to go for the top specification to get the supercharged engine, but with the F-Type they're all supercharged bar the P300, which came later on. Now the standard V6 churns out 340 PS. With the phase 1 it was referred to as the base F-Type, with a more powerful S model being the 380, but that was the phase 1. This is a phase 2, so they didn't really have a distinguishing name other than P340 and P380. But if you have the R-Dynamic appearance pack, which this one does, the P340 or the P380 emblem is overridden by the R-Dynamic badge. And due to me only reviewing the V6 part of the review, that's it for the overview. So here is the front of this particular F-Type. It is also a phase 2, just like mine, so it has the full LEDs, the larger single intakes, and the splitter beneath it. As I've mentioned, this is an R-Dynamic, which is Jaguar speech for sporty appearance package, which includes this black ring around the air intake. Here's what an F-Type without R-Dynamic looks like. This particular car is also black packed, so it has the black grille surrounds, and the owner of this car has added on this black front emblem. This particular car has the extended front splitter. There's even another one called a Sport Design Pack, which looks like this. This particular car is rear-wheel drive, so it has these distinct bonnet vents. If this were to be an all-wheel drive, you would get a slightly wider bonnet bulge, and the vents will be here. But one thing to watch out for with V6s and V8s with these bonnet vents is water ingress, as they can let water into the injectors and seize them. However, if you have a 2 litre, you're exempt. As I've mentioned, this is a phase 2, so it has the full LEDs. The base non-R-Dynamics may come with the older Bisonons, but one thing to look out for is that these DRLs are known for failing. Coming around, once again it's pretty much the same as the 2 litre F-Type, just in a different colour. Same Gyrodyne wheels, though these are in black. Again, black side vent, because this is a black pack. Black side skirt. If this were to be a base model, you would not get that extension on the side. And the Sport Design Pack has that flare as well. And of course, the door handles pop out. Here's the back wheel. Again, it's the same, deep dished. And here's the overall side profile. Again, nothing much to talk about other than it looks brilliant, and it was designed by the same man who designed Aston Martins, Ian Callum, who I'll actually get back to later on this video. This particular car has no glass roof, it is colour coded instead, so we'll see what it's like in the interior view. Rear wing is up, it's currently at cleaning mode. Once again it raises at 70 and drops back down at 50. Here's what the back of this car looks like. Again, it is the same as the 2 litre F-Type review. Once again, this car doesn't have the Sport Design Pack, so there's no underline here with a wraparound on the tailpipes and underline on the other side, colour coded to the car. From factory, this car comes with 2 exhausts to distinguish it as a V6, but this particular car has tailpipes from a Krapovich. And once again, this car has the active rear wing. You can also choose to have a fixed wing if you prefer. Watch the 2-litre review to see the boot. And again, same story on this side. This is only a review for the V6. Coming inside. So what's different here? Well, this particular car has been tweaked with by its owner. This car does have red seat belts, which do look really nice. This one actually has the comfort seats, so I'm curious to see what these seats are like. That kick plate is aftermarket, and because this has these seats, there is no extended leather. So this is all soft vinyl, and that is actually aftermarket added on by the owner. Same with on the door, that is aftermarket, but the door top is still soft. It just doesn't feel as special as the extended leather. And the armrest here is not as yielding, and again not as soft. This one doesn't have the alloy pedals nor lane keeping assist. Now coming inside, once again it's pretty much the same as the P300. So let's just quickly talk about the differences with this particular one. So here's my point of view. These paddles are aftermarket. This particular steering wheel isn't flat bottomed, it's nice and round. But strangely, there is no thumb bolsters on the 10 and 2 like on mine. And that R Sport sticker is also aftermarket. It should say R Dynamic for this F-Type. The dials are exactly the same, except with the V6 you get a slightly higher red line. Once again, these red details are aftermarket. Let's put the rear wing down. And here's what the infotainment system looks like on this older car. It is slightly nicer than what the Phase 1 had. It's nice and slick. But again, this cutout looks a bit too ATM slot-like. It's not as sleek as the all-screen one. Luckily, this car does have reversing camera, which is a lot crisper than what you get on the Phase 1. I have actually driven a Phase 1 F-Type before. And maps are slightly improved. They are more in keeping with the InControl Touch Pro map. So we're currently in this retail park in Gloucester, so pinch to zoom. And it's quick to respond. If this were to be the Phase 1, I had to use these ones separately. Let's see how up to date the map is on here. So let's say I want to go to Newport, South Wales. Where's the enter? There we go. So if this were to be the older infotainment system, it would say Newport Gwent, as it has the outdated counties map. But this newer one, they just skip the county straight away, so you get Newport NP19. Mind you, there's also a Newport GL13 closer. Luckily, this car does have heated steering wheel. This earlier car will always have this button blank, no matter how much you spec it. It's only on the InControl Touch that they added this button for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto for voice control. Dials are exactly the same. This one does have the front screen. This one does have dual zone climate control, but they're currently at sync, so that's good. And if I press this button, they click, which means this car does have heated seats. This particular car has the Morzine headlining as opposed to the upgraded Alcantara, which mine has. But again, this is still very nice. This is what the ceiling looks like without the glass roof. It feels a bit dark and dingy. Personally, I do prefer it with the glass roof. And if I open these sun visors, they have no mirror, even though my F-Type does. And it's the same on the passenger side, though that is aftermarket. And you've got the mid-cycle interior mirror. So the later cars will have a frameless mirror, and then the earlier cars will have the mirror curving downwards. And does this one creak? A bit, but I know the earlier one creaks even more. Here's what the airbag housing looks like without the extended leather. And here's the grab handle, once again, without the extended leather. It is soft and plush, but it does feel a bit too vinyl-y. It feels too utilitarian by comparison. And here's what the armrest looks like without the extended leather. This particular car was also signed by both Sir Johnny Egan and Ian Callum. Here's what the seats look like. They're a lot thinner, they're not as thickly bolstered, but you still get the odd shoulder supports here. And the centre is in ultra suede / fabric. It doesn't feel like genuine suede, that's for sure. And I don't know if this is genuine leather, but again, this is definitely not Windsor leather and feels a lot more utilitarian. And finally, here's a little companion hiding behind the passenger seat. So that's the exterior and interior done now, so let's see what this car is like to drive. So, seatbelt on. Windows down, both sides. Start the car. So with the exhaust off, it is very quiet, which in this context is a good thing. But if I press the sports exhaust button, that's what it sounds like. Again, this has an aftermarket system by Akrapovic, so from factory this is not what the V6 would sound like. If you want a more factory sounding V6, into drive, and off we go. So from first impressions, it does feel a lot more dark and dingy in here due to the lack of glass roof. And these paddles do take a little bit of getting used to, but they are aftermarket. But I do feel like the very top of the paddles, if you were to pull on an indicator stalk or the wiper stalk, they would clash. But again, that's aftermarket, so I'm going to disregard that. Again, from where I'm sat, not much difference. And it's very sunny, but that's the best I've got with these sun visors. Turn off stop start, I don't really need it. But from where I'm sat, it still feels very smooth, very calming, and very unassuming to have a loud exhaust. Not so fun fact, around 2017 the V6 F-Type was so loud that in Australia they had to be recalled to have quieter exhausts fitted. But that was over in Down Under. And off we go. The steering wheel feels very thin rimmed without the bolsters. And from everyday driving, feeling no difference at all. Maybe a slightly heavier front nose, but again, in everyday driving, I'm not really going to be fussed about that. One of the benefits of having a more powerful engine is that it's a lot more effortless to do the everyday driving. So even though I'm in a sports car with a moderately big engine, it still feels very relaxing to cruise in. And even at 30 and 40, it's pretty much the same as the P300. It just revs just over 1000 RPM. Brakes are very progressive as well. I know some cars can have very grabby brakes or very spongy brakes. This one feels like in a happy medium. Also with the V6 F-Type, this is an engine that Jaguar first came out with, along with the V8S, and they benchmarked themselves with Porsche. But Jaguar were very unclear with which Porsche they wanted to benchmark themselves with, whether it's the lower Boxster and Cayman or the upper 911 Carrera. Because the V6 was priced smack bang between the smaller Boxster / Cayman and the higher up 911. It's only with the P300 they made it obvious they wanted to benchmark that with the 2-litre Cayman, and then the V8R with the Carrera, and of course the SVR, either the GT3 or the GT4. Turning in. Once again, I mentioned it does feel a bit nose heavy compared to the P300, but it's still somewhat direct, and the steering, there's very little deadness to it as well. The ride in this V6 feels pretty much the same. I remember watching a video reviewed by Jeremy Clarkson himself. He said the worst part of the car by a country mile is the ride, but even driving the V6, I still have to disagree with him. It feels perfectly composed. Yes, there are undulations coming through, but then again, this is not a Rolls-Royce. It's not as comfortable as an XK perhaps, but again, this is no Lotus, this is no Caterham. I still feel cocooned, I still feel very refined in here, and I don't feel like my back is hurting. Also, this particular car has the comfort seats, which do the job very well. There's still bolsters on the lower section, just not as heavily done, and the shoulder supports, yeah, they're still there. And I know I'm wearing a puffer coat. Even without the puffer coat, it still feels not that much more different to the performance seats. So if you're thinking about getting the performance seats, which look like this, but you're worried about comfort, at least with this Phase 2 car, you don't have to worry about it. However, I do know on the Phase 1s, the comfort and the performance seats are way more different. And with the Phase 3, with the smaller headlights, once again, they're the same as the Phase 2. So yes, overall, nothing much to add on this part, so let's skip to the next section. Okay, entering the city centre now. I've entered during rush hour as well, so slightly more challenging than usual, but nope, it's coping very well. Even with the, I just realised I left the exhaust on. Even with the engine revving at 2000 RPM, the exhaust isn't too intrusive. Because I have driven a few V8s, which are very ASBO. Right turn. Again, I'm not really noticing that much nose heaviness in everyday driving, especially here in the city. And hold on. Luckily, this exhaust, even if you're giving it a bit of welly in a city centre like this, it is not very ASBO. So yes, with city driving, there's not really much to add. And this neatly brings us to the next test. What's body roll like with the V6? Okay, turning left. Anything? Maybe a little bit more G-force, but it's only a little bit more, and probably negligible to most people. So overall, the V6 isn't really affecting the way this car is driving at all over its P300 counterpart. So there's only one last thing to check, see what this car is like on the open road. Okay, making our way to the national speed limit now, so pull this back to put it into dynamic and push this to the left to turn it into sport mode. And now that I put it into dynamic mode, I'm hearing more noises. I have a feeling that's probably coming from the speakers because I did not hear that from earlier. But yes, forgot to mention, these V6s have a soft limiter at 3,500 RPM when revving stationary, but then the 2 litre doesn't. On the national speed limit now. On the roundabout. And 3, 2, 1, and floor it. Okay, that's much more like it. I can now hear the supercharger whine. Someone in front of me. And already it feels more fun to drive than the P300, even if it is a bit nose heavy. On the roundabout. Revs to play. It now revs 500 RPM later than on the P300, and like I said, I can now hear the supercharger whine. Now with these Jaguars, the 4.2 V8s, you can hear the supercharger whine throughout, but with the 5 litres you have to really rev them high to hear that supercharger whine. And of course this 3 litre is a derivative of the 5 litre. Also, let's just quickly put it back into normal mode, put it in its highest gear. And at 70, this one's revving at around 1800 RPM. Which means at 70, this car actually revs at a lower RPM than the P300. So yes, the V6 is still a very good Grand Tourer. I've also been looking at the trip computer, and the owner of this car has been averaging about 30 mpg. For a 3 litre, this is very frugal. Of course, I can still do slightly better in the 2 litre. 35 average and 42 if I was really being careful, but 30 mpg from a 3 litre is still very generous. On the roundabout now, time to do a U-turn and see what this car is like in manual mode. Also, the accelerator is a bit twitchier when coming from a standstill. That's just the nature of this car having more torque. Or the paddle. It's the same ZF 8-speed torque converter seen on all the other F-types. Back on the dual carriageway. Dials are red again. In manual mode, yep, this car is even more fun to drive over its 2 litre counterpart. Whilst I say there is definitely more to like about this 3 litre, I'd say it's probably about 20% more fun to drive, and the MPG penalty is about 5 mpg, maybe 8 or 9, but I must say the 3 litre in the F-Type does help liven things up a little bit. Seriously, that supercharger whine is very addictive. So let's head back to the car park and finalise this video. Verdict. The V6 is definitely the one I would recommend everyone to go for. It is the Goldilocks of the range. It closely matches the 2 litre for everyday frugality and convenience, while still closely matching the 5 litre for theatre and noise. The V6 is also available in both rear and all-wheel drive. Just for that extra safety buffer, I would recommend the all-wheel drive. The V6 is also available with a manual, but these are very rare, and the ZF 8-speed is still very fun to drive, so I would still recommend the V6 Auto for everyone. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me review this V6 Jaguar F-Type. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you are new, ring the bell to stay up to speed, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers!